she's just a great sister, and happy birthday to her. It's just a good time of year. I was thinking about, we're all graduating. Everybody's graduating in May, June, and I started thinking, what started all that? What started, school in September and summer's off, and when did it start? And why doesn't school start in January and end in September? And then, I really started putting it together. It is perfect. I believe it was because we had farmers, and you were taking care of the crops with your family, and then you went to school to get some learning done, get some learning taken care of in September to May. And then you got out and you were supposed to work in the summer or vacation. I don't know where it all began. And, this is the way we do it here. So retailers are planning around that. I would imagine it peaks again in July or August because you're getting back to school and the supplies and the clothing and everything. So it's all mapped out. Somebody made that big old plan, and it's interesting the way I'm watching commerce and income flow at those peak times. Hey, when I was at a restaurant the other night, I just wanted to mention this. They actually had, it was a very fine restaurant. My daughter picked it for her celebratory dinner. And it's a really, really cool restaurant. And they had, right when you walk in, a bowl. And in that bowl were books of matches. Now, I am not kidding you. I can't even think of the last time I saw a match. And I grew up with them. Like, they were part of the grocery list. This box filled with books of matches. And if we didn't have matches, I mean, what? Where's the matches? Where's the match? Everybody, my dad smoked a pipe. Both of my parents smoked cigarettes. But matches were everything. They lit the gas stove because our gas stove didn't automatically come on the way that it should. It's a pretty big deal, matches. And I would just burn them. I was fascinated with them. I played around with smoking cigarettes and stuff. I loved matches. So this is a really beautiful book of matches. And I just wanted you guys to think about, I don't know why, the last time. I mean, do you have matches in your house? I don't. Those are laying around. But they are the first book of matches to be in my house. So I thought it was pretty cool. I love that this restaurant is really cool like that. Like, everything about this restaurant is pretty cool. And then upstairs is a brewery. How genius. How genius are these people? Get your dinner, do your thing, go upstairs, the rooftop, and have some beers. Very, very, very fun. Thank you, Raquel, for that. That was a wonderful weekend. That was completely planned. And I started to think about all of these things that we planned. And really and truly, there were just a couple of hiccups. But other than that, the weekend was perfect. Absolutely perfect. We are raining and raining and raining and raining and raining a lot here in Ohio. And it really decided to give us a break. So I'm a writer, and I've been writing all my life. I wrote my first little poem that was published when I was about 5. And it really wasn't a poem. I mean, it looks that way, but it's just this little story. And what they did in our school is because you couldn't really write yet, all your letters and words and string them into sentences and all that good stuff. There was somebody, it was for the school newspaper. My mom, how cool is she? She actually saved the little mimeograph, the blue ink that was typed out, and then this little thing was mimeographed. I'm going to get that story for you guys, and I will read it to you one day. And by the way, thank you guys all for listening and your messages and emails. Just got to say that. Anyhow, first little story. So I've been writing, and I was always fascinated with the art of writing. I mean, you're holding this pencil in your hand, and if you press it on paper, magical things happen. Pictures, words. You start it with a letter, turns into a word. Words make sentences. Sentences make, paragraphs and complete thoughts and commas and apostrophes. I'm just absolutely ridiculously, meticulously fascinated with the written word. not just the stories it tells. I really like the way a really cool pencil or pen goes across the page. Yes, I still use pencils and paper, but I use my laptop as well to tell my stories. Having said that, speaking of planning, it was many, many years ago. I had just had my second child. She's a little newborn baby in the spring. And, in celebration of her, kind of tying it in with her birthday, this one of my little, I don't even know what you call it. I guess now it would be a little blog thing that I wrote. And I, I had already, Katie was 2, so I'm on my second child, going absolutely wanting everybody to be happy. Motherhood is a funny thing. It really is. We're like, we want babies, we want babies, we want a family, we want a family. And we're basing that on having the way we grew up. And we want to grow our family, and we want to see. And I'll tell you what, there is just, of all the things I've done in my life, never taking it for granted. Those 3 babies that I got to carry around in my belly, I feel so not sorry for men, but they will never know that. They will never know that feeling of that first moment when you find out you're pregnant. And then you start really taking serious about you're growing a life inside of you. So I love cocktails. I love drinking. Done. Watching where the air that I would breathe, whatever I was putting in my body, I was thinking about that baby. I really nurtured and absolutely loved being pregnant. I loved it. And then that first time, little foot or their little hand punches you, it is just, you're like, oh my gosh, this is really working. There really is. This no longer is a bunch of cells. This really is the little baby. And they have ultrasound now and then. And my mom didn't. She had babies 7 times. No ultrasound. You're just hoping what's going on in there is good. And she had 7 beautiful, perfect babies. It was amazing. And, but then it's all controlled when they're inside of you. All you got to do is take care of what you eat and not mind them kicking around and keeping you up at night. Then you have this baby, and now you're holding it, and your arms are no longer for everything that you used to use them for, and they are to hold the baby and feed those babies and take food and give it to them and dress them. And what it does is you're trying to please your husband, you're trying to please your babies, if you're married. If you're not married, you're trying to please that baby and just take care of you and the baby, and it gets really, really crazy. And I was no different. And so even when my kids were babies like that, I was writing and never knew what would ever happen with these little blogs or stories. But I definitely want to share this one with you today because it was the time. It was chaos. It was beginning summer 1994, in fact. So it's called My Divine. And at the time, I didn't really even... I say this with complete honesty. I titled it that. I didn't even know what that really meant. Divine experience. What is that? And really started looking into it and realized that this was one of those divine experiences. So I found it. It's a little something I'd like to share with you about. You can plan and then things happen. And you just have to, we have to look at them a little bit and really embrace whatever's happening. That's that thing we call life. So here is something called My Divine. Okay? This little storytelling here. My divine. On the east side of our home, the sun was rising clearly and beautifully one spring morning. I pulled the mini blinds in our kitchen on the opposite side of our home and noticed that there were dark clouds about to burst, and they did. I turned my back to continue my morning routine and looked out the window again, and this time I saw an attractive, well-groomed, elderly woman standing under a tree in our front yard. The rain was a downpour at this point. The woman ran quickly in our driveway to get under that tree that covered our entire home. I called out to her to offer assistance, maybe a newspaper or umbrella to keep her dry. And what she chose to do was chat with me through this brief rain. I learned about her family. Her husband had passed away. They had ran a construction business. Her son died at a very young age. She spent most of her time helping out with the grandchildren. She told me she was 70 years old. She had salt and pepper hair and beautiful olive skin and deep, dark eyes with smile lines reaching to her hairline. She was fit and enjoyed her morning strolls. She told me of a neighbor of mine just 2 doors down who had raised 14 children and never complained a day in her young life as a mother. My new friend, standing on my porch talking, also informed me that is why my neighbor's children were always taking care of their mother. I invited her to come in. She declined and peeked through the door around me and noticed my newborn sleeping soundly. I was tired and had been, even though I was just beginning to greet this new day. She looked into my eyes and said, "These are the best days of your life. None will ever compare. They seem to get richer as your children develop into adults, but none will compare to these recent days ahead of you when they need you most and in your close, comforting control." I have never seen this woman again, although she told me she walked those streets often. Guardian angel, delivering a message to a much-needed now mother of 2. I look back on this conversation and think to myself, the sun was shining and rising on one side of my home, the other a seasonal downpour. To keep this woman on my stoop? And truly, as she walked off with the plastic I had given her to keep dry, I'm going to try not to cry, you guys. And truly, as she walked off with the plastic I had given her to keep dry, the clouds cleared and it quit raining. Being so recent, I do not think I have learned everything that there was to gain from this acquaintance, but I do realize this. Sometimes it seems as though we're going against a smooth grain when building a family, but there is no other structure more important. The splinters that sometimes hurt, to take the time to put the pieces together and accept that when times are difficult, to pay attention. Don't complain, for these are the times that turn out to be the most important, to learn, teach, and to build character on. I've learned that this is a slow process, the adjustments to make, and to take time to learn from people out there that came from a strong family themselves. In our brief time together, I could sense clearly everything she had gained from her upbringing to give her strength, and that in which she shared with her children and grandchildren, and now me. We cannot waste these encounters. I didn't know it then, but as I look back on it now, I became richer in love to my children because of it. Yeah, that was in 1994. And I've never forgotten about that. I've never forgotten. Now, I had not read these words in quite some time, but I had never forgotten about that. And those bleary-eyed mornings when you can't see, you're exhausted, and you're really, that motherhood and parenthood thing is a really big deal. And sometimes I think that, there's a world out there that wants to take that for granted. And I don't just mean giving birth, I mean parenthood and how blessed we are to when you really think about it, what happens when you become pregnant and how that happens and the chances of getting pregnant how truly slim they are.